Okay, so now we're going over our 7 tarsal bones. We have 3 posteriorly, meaning in the back, and then 4 anteriorly, meaning this way towards our metatarsals. So the 3 in the back are going to be our talus, our calcaneus, and our navicular, which is that one right there. Our 4 anterior is going to be our cuboid bone, our lateral cuneiform, our intermediate cuneiform, and our medial cuneiform. Okay, so remember, we have a medial malleoli on our tibia, a lateral malleoli on our fibula. So these extend down a little bit past these posterior ankle bones to help form our ankle joint. So first, let's talk about the talus. I'm going to use a different model here. Okay, so our talus was this top bone right here. Okay, looking at it from each direction. This bone right here is our talus bone. It's also known as the astragalus bone. So our talus bone lies between the distal end of the tibia and the calcaneus. And this is where the body weight is distributed to our calcaneus. So when I pull up my other model, you can see our talus bone is between our tibia and our calcaneus. Okay, it's located between the 2 bones. See our talus bone right here, located between our tibia and our calcaneus, which is our heel bone. Now on the talus bone, there's a few parts we have to know. First is the body, okay? So the body is the large posterior part. So if I'm looking at it posteriorly, you can see the posterior area of your talus bone. This is the body. Then we're going to have the trochlea. The trochlea is the upper smooth convex surface that articulates with the lower end of the tibia. So the upper surface, this is a concave surface that is articulating with the lower end of the tibia. This is the trochlea of our talus, okay? The trochlea of our talus right there on top. Then we have the neck. The neck is the constricted part lying between the body and the head. The head is the rounded anterior end of the talus. It's convex anteriorly and articulates with the posterior surface of the navicular bone. So our body was this back portion, this posterior part. The trochlea was this top part. The head is this anterior part right here. Okay, looking at this, the head is right here and it's articulating with our navicular bone. Between the head and the body back here is this slightly constricted area right there. That is the neck. Okay, so our talus bone sits between our tibia. The tibia sits right here, remember, on top of the trochlea of the talus bone, and it sits between the calcaneus, which is this heel bone right here. The posterior part of our talus is the body. The top surface is the trochlea. The anterior surface is the head. The head is articulating with our navicular bone. And this slightly constricted part right here between the head and the body is going to be the neck of the talus. Then we're going to move to our calcaneus. Our calcaneus, remember, is our heel bone. It is the largest tarsal bone. So remember, our calcaneus is the largest tarsal bone. It is the largest bone for our ankle and our heel. It lies right below the talus. Remember, this is our talus. The calcaneus is lying right below our talus. So let's go over the parts we need to know for calcaneus. On our calcaneus, we have the calcaneal tuberosity. This is the enlarged posterior end. It is visible and palpable. It is this heel portion that you feel back here, okay? So this is our calcaneal tuberosity, okay? The heel part that you can actually feel in the posterior portion. Also on our calcaneus is a small but definite shelf of bone that projects medially, and this is called the sustentaculum tali. Now, it's kind of hard to see here, but there's a piece of bone projecting medially. If I flip it over and look at the bottom view, you can see it better right here. So you see this piece of bone projecting medially from the calcaneus? That is the sustentaculum tali. So the main things you need to know about calcaneus is our calcaneal tuberosity back here, the posterior part that you can actually feel, and then our sustentaculum tali, which is this shelf of bone right here projecting medially. Then the last posterior bone that we have to know is going to be our navicular bone. Now our navicular bone is over here by our big toe side, so it's on the medial side. Here is our navicular bone right here. Now our navicular bone, remember, lies anterior to the talus. It is in front of the talus bone. And on our navicular bone, we have a tuberosity. Its prominent medial border, it is palpable and anterior to the medial malleoli. The navicular articulates behind the talus and in front with the 3 cuneiforms. So on our navicular bone, we have right here a tuberosity. It's poking out medially. Okay, so notice our navicular bone is articulating with our talus, which is posterior to it, and our navicular bone is articulating with our medial cuneiform, our intermediate cuneiform, and our lateral cuneiform. So this navicular bone is articulating posteriorly with the talus, and the front anteriorly with the medial, intermediate, and lateral cuneiform bones. Okay, so that brings us to the anterior row of the feet. Obviously, this is our lateral side. This is our pinky toe. This is the medial side. This is our big toe. Those bones that make up that anterior row is going to be the medial cuneiform, our intermediate cuneiform, lateral cuneiform, and our cuboid bone. Our cuboid bone is a little square-shaped bone. Okay, so it's important to study the diagram, know which bone articulates with which metatarsal, and know if it articulates with anything posteriorly, any other tarsal bones. So you should know that our medial cuneiform is articulating with my first metatarsal. It's also articulating with this navicular bone posteriorly. The intermediate cuneiform is articulating with my second metatarsal and my navicular bone. My lateral cuneiform is articulating with my third metatarsal and the navicular bone. So all 3 cuneiform bones are articulating with the navicular bone, and they all 3 have their each metatarsal bone that they are articulating with as well. Then we move to the cuboid bone. It's in the anterior row, but it's on the lateral side. So it lies on the lateral side of the foot. This bone has the calcaneus behind it. Look, I'm turning my foot to the side. Our cuboid bone has our calcaneus posterior to it. Our 3 cuneiforms had the navicular bone posterior to it, okay? So the medial, intermediate, and lateral cuneiform have that navicular posterior to it. Our cuboid, that lateral bone on the anterior surface, has the calcaneus posterior to it, and anteriorly it is articulating with our 4th and 5th metatarsal. Okay, so it's important to go over which of these bones is articulating with what metatarsal and what it is articulating posteriorly with. Also important to remember that the talus is on top of the calcaneus in all the parts we went over. Now, just like the palm of your hand, the feet, the arch of your foot has metatarsals. Remember, in your hand, we had those metacarpals. Well, in our foot, we have metatarsals. So we have 5 metatarsal bones. We have the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th metatarsals. Now, just like the ones in our hands, it's going to go base, body, head. So the head is at the distal end. Base, body, head. So if I specifically ask on the test, name that part of the bone, I'm not asking for the bone, I'm asking for the name. So if I'm pointing to right here and saying name that part of the bone, you would say that that's the base of the first metatarsal. You're not just going to tell me it's the metatarsal. So remember, our metatarsals, my foot's like this, I'm just holding it down. Base, body, head. The head is at the distal end. Same thing with our phalanges, same thing with our toes. We have 14 phalanges. 2 in the big toe and 3 in toes 2, 3, 4, and 5. Each phalange, same thing. This end is the base. Then you have the body. The distal end is the head. Base, body, head. Same for the rest of them. Important to remember, the big toe only has 2 phalanges. The other toes have 3, just like our fingers. So that gives us a total of 14 phalanges.